The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains of the cozy apartment, casting a soft glow over the room. Billie, with his slender frame draped in an oversized sweater, sat at the small kitchen table, cradling a steaming mug of tea. His delicate features were illuminated by the sunlight, highlighting his pale skin and the subtle flush of his cheeks. He glanced up as David entered the room, his presence commanding and his heavy-set frame filling the doorway. David moved with a certain authority, the floorboards creaking slightly under his weight. He poured himself a cup of coffee, his broad shoulders stretching the fabric of his shirt, and sat down across from Billie. Despite the size of the table, it seemed to shrink between them, the contrast in their appearances more pronounced in the intimate morning light. "Did you sleep well?" David's voice was deep and steady, a stark contrast to Billie's more gentle and melodic tone. Billie nodded, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug. "I did." The rain was soothing. He offered a small smile, his eyes briefly meeting David's before looking away. David reached across the table, placing a hand over Billie's. "I'm glad," he said, his touch firm yet comforting. Their dynamic was unspoken but palpable. Friends often mistook David for the husband in their relationship and Billie as the wife. It was an assumption they constantly corrected, feigning equality as if their lives depended on it, but within the walls of their home, they both knew their friends were right. Billie got up from the table, smoothing the wrinkles out of his sweater, long bare legs attracting David's stare, and moved towards the stove. "What would you like for breakfast?" he asked, opening the fridge and taking out a carton of eggs. "Just some eggs, please," David replied, pouring himself a cup of coffee. He grabbed the newspaper from the counter and settled back into his chair, the paper crackling as he unfolded it. Billie cracked a couple of eggs into the pan, the sizzle filling the quiet kitchen. He moved with practiced ease, his delicate hands deftly maneuvering the spatula. The familiar routine brought him a sense of comfort, even as his mind wandered. David took a sip of his coffee, his eyes scanning the headlines. After a few moments, he glanced up over the top of the newspaper. "So, are you ready for lunch with your mother later today?" Billie's hands stilled for a moment, the question making his heart race. He quickly recovered, flipping the eggs with a slightly shaky hand. I guess so," he replied, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. David folded the newspaper and set it aside, his gaze softening as he looked at Billie. "I know how she can be, but try not to worry too much. I'm here for you, remember." Billie nodded, focusing intently on the eggs in the pan. "I know. It's just, she always has so many questions. And she never seems satisfied with my answers." David got up and walked over to Billie, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll get through it together," he said, giving Billie's shoulder a gentle squeeze. Billie turned off the stove and plated the eggs, setting them on the table in front of David. "Thanks, wifey," he murmured, picking up his fork and digging into his breakfast. Billie stood in the doorway of their bedroom, staring at the cute white summer dress David had laid out on the bed. The delicate fabric, adorned with small purple floral patterns, was light and airy and perfect for a young woman going to lunch with her mother. His eyes moved over the matching shoes, accessories, and even the lace pink panties and bra that David had carefully selected. A wave of anxiety washed over him, making his heart race. David stood by the room, sensing Billie's unease. He walked over and gently placed a hand on Billie's back. "I know this is a big step," he said softly, his voice full of reassurance. "But it's time, Billie. Your mother needs to know the real you. We can't keep hiding this." Billie bit his lip, his fingers twisting together nervously. "What if she doesn't accept me? What if she hates me?" His voice trembled, his fears laid bare. David turned Billie to face him, holding his slender shoulders firmly but gently. "She'll have to come to accept you for who you are. But you need to be true to yourself first. And I'll be with you every step of the way." Tears welled up in Billie's eyes, but he nodded slowly. They had discussed this so many times, putting it off, delaying it. But today would be the start he had always wanted. "Okay," he whispered, "okay." David's arms wrapped around him, pulling him into a comforting embrace. Billie leaned into David's big, warm and solid frame, drawing strength from his partner's masculine comfort. After a few moments, Billie pulled away slightly, wiping his eyes. With a shaky breath, he began to undress. He removed his sweater, letting it fall to the floor, and then slipped off his t-shirt, revealing his slender chest. His hands trembled as he unzipped his shorts and stepping out of them. David stayed close, watching as Billie picked up the delicate underwear David had chosen. He slipped into the lacy panties, the unfamiliar fabric both strange and comforting against his skin. He fastened the matching bra, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Next, Billie reached for the summer dress. David helped him slide it over his head, the soft fabric settling around his body. The dress fit perfectly, hugging his frame in all the right places. David zipped it up, his fingers gentle and reassuring as they smoothed the dress over his partner's body. Billie looked at himself in the mirror, the transformation already beginning to take shape. But there was still more to do. David handed him a pair of low-heeled shoes. Billie sat on the bed and watched as David slipped them slowly onto his feet. He then stood, feeling a bit unsteady at first but quickly adjusting. David then guided him to the vanity, where he had laid out an array of makeup. "Let's complete the look," he said with a smile. Billie carefully applied foundation, blush, and eyeshadow, enhancing his delicate features. He had done this behind closed doors so many times. A touch of mascara and a light pink lipstick finished the look, bringing out the inner girl. "You look beautiful," David said, his eyes shining with pride. Billie looked at himself in the mirror, standing next to David. The reflection showed a delicate, feminine figure next to a strong, supportive man. It was a striking contrast, yet it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Together," David said, taking Billie's hand. "We'll face this together." Billie nodded, a sense of peace slowly replacing his anxiety. "Together," he echoed, squeezing David's hand. With one last look in the mirror, they turned and walked out of the bedroom. "You are a what?" Billie's mother screamed, her face contorted in shock and disbelief. The living room seemed to shrink around them, the walls closing in as her voice echoed through the small space. Billie sat on the couch, his delicate frame trembling with sobs. Tears streamed down his cheeks, smudging the carefully applied makeup from moments ago. He had never felt so vulnerable, so exposed. David sat beside him, his arm around Billie, trying to keep his temper as the older woman stood seething with anger in front of them. David spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Margaret, please, try to understand. Billie is transgender. This is who she truly is, and she wants to start transitioning into a woman. We wanted you to hear it from us, not from anyone else." Margaret's eyes were wide with disbelief, her breathing rapid. "No, this can't be happening. I raised a son, not a daughter." She struggled with the words, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to me, Billie? To our family?" Billie sobbed quietly on the couch, his hands covering his face. "I'm sorry, Mom," he choked out between sobs. "I didn't want to hurt you. But I can't keep living a lie. This is who I am." David placed a comforting hand on Billie's shoulder, his own heart aching at the sight of his partner's pain. "Margaret, this is hard for all of us. But Billie needs your support more than ever. This isn't a choice, it's who she is." Margaret shook her head, her expression hardening. "She? No, I can't accept this. I don't understand it, and I don't want to. This is too much. You're not the son I raised. You have that right. David blurted out suddenly, unable to stop himself. Mom, please, Billie pleaded, looking up at her with red, tear-streaked eyes. I need you. I need you to understand. To accept me. But Margaret's face was turned on David now. You did this. You made my son gay, and now you want him to be a woman too. Mom. It's me, I've always been a girl. Billie screamed, tears soaking his face, stuck between shock, anger, and pain. His mother shook her head, her mind seemingly made up. I can't do this, Billie. I can't. I want you both to leave. Now. And don't come back. Not ever. The words hung in the air, with a finality that cut deep. Billie collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. David's jaw tightened, his fists clenched, physically hurting as he watched Billie in emotional distress. He wanted to fix things. But he knew they couldn't force acceptance. He helped Billie to his feet, wrapping an arm around his waist to support him. Come on, Billie, David said softly, not even glancing at Margaret. Let's get out of here. The park was quiet, a gentle breeze rustling the fallen leaves along the path. Billie and David walked along the winding walk, the sounds of birdsong and distant laughter from children playing doing little to lift the weight that hung between them. Billie's eyes were red and puffy, his steps slow and heavy in the brand new heels. David walked beside him, his hand firmly holding Billie's, offering silent support. I feel so shattered, David, Billie said, his voice barely more than a whisper. Like everything's falling apart. David squeezed his hand, his heart aching for his partner. I know, Billie. We'll figure this out. Together. Billie nodded, but his expression remained desolate. They walked in silence for a while, David's mind racing as he tried to think of a way to lift Billie's spirits. Suddenly, an idea came to him, something he had planned for later in the day but now seemed like the perfect time. Hey, David said, stopping and turning to face Billie. I have an idea. Something I was planning to do later, but I think it's exactly what you need right now. Billie looked up at him, curiosity flickering in his eyes. What is it? David smiled, a glint of excitement in his eyes. It's a surprise. Trust me, it'll make you feel better. Billie managed a small smile, the first since they had left his mother's house. Okay. I trust you. David led Billie out of the park and back to their car. The drive was short, but filled with anticipation. They pulled up to a quaint little shop with a bright sign that read, Pamper Yourself Spa and Beauty. Billie's eyes widened in surprise. A spa. David grinned. Yes, a spa, but with a difference. They help trans girl with their makeup and dress, basically make them look and feel gorgeous. I booked us a session here. Before what happened I thought it would be a nice way to end the day. Billie's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. David, this is perfect. David kissed Billie's forehead. You deserve it, Billie. Let's go in and get pampered. Billie stood in front of another mirror, barely recognizing the person staring back. An hour of pampering and transformation had turned his somber mood into one of cautious excitement. He now wore a stunning short red cocktail dress that hugged his slender frame and showed off his long shapely legs and thighs. The matching red open-toed heels added a sexiness to the outfit, making him look glamorous and confident. His hair, now curled into soft, cascading waves, framed the soft face beautifully. The makeup, a little come hither, highlighted his delicate features, making him look like a model ready for a night out. David stood beside him, beaming with pride and admiration. The transformation was breathtaking, and he could see a new spark in Billie's eyes that hadn't been there before. Ms. Clarice, the owner of the salon, stepped back to admire her handiwork. She was a striking woman in her 50s, with a sharp eye for beauty and a warm, infectious laugh. "My dear, you look absolutely stunning," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with delight. "David, you better take this gorgeous lady out on the town and show her a good time." Billie giggled, a light bubbly sound that made David smile. "What is it, honey?" he asked. "She said her, just now, on me." Billie covered his face, blushing but pleased. Ms. Clarice cackled loudly. "What else would I call a beautiful young woman?" "I know who you are." David laughed, his heart swelling with happiness. "I was just thinking the same thing. Those are your pronouns now, Billie." He turned to the older lady. "Thank you so much for everything. You've made a world of difference today." Ms. Clarice waved a hand dismissively, though her smile showed how pleased she was with their reactions. "It's my pleasure, really. Billie, you deserve to feel as beautiful as you look. Now go out and enjoy yourselves." Billie turned to face David, his eyes shimmering with a mixture of gratitude and newfound confidence. "What do you think?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with hope. David took Billie's hands in his gaze unwavering. "I think you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be with you."